Welcome to the 4Cs for SAP Business One. Today is episode 19, and today we're talking about the Smart Warehouse with Chase Linsenbigler. Chase is a business development consultant at WiSys, having spent the majority of his career in the SAP Business One space. He got his start at WiSys as a customer-facing consultant after leaving his own consulting venture, Tabono LLC. He has recently been promoted to the business development team. He specializes in Lean Six Sigma and operational excellence philosophies for warehousing with a wealth of experience in AI, machine learning, and voice-guided systems. Chase is also formally trained in SAP Business One as a former member of the SAP program at Saint Vincent College. Chase, tell me what a smart warehouse is in your mind.
Yes, I think I really like to kind of refer this back to something that a lot of people are experiencing now with things like Google Home and Alexa, where, when we talk about a smart warehouse, it's not going to be like we're copying that exactly or anything like that, because there's a lot of, weird things going on in that situation that doesn't make sense for a warehouse. But that everything is integrated mentality, I think that's where we're really going with a warehouse when we talk about a smart warehouse. So, of course, we're kind of doing that too when you bring in an ERP to any business. You start getting everything integrated, and then when you add in those add-ons, that's when you really push it further. But a warehouse is unique because of all the different technology and equipment going on in there. So when we talk about WiSys and WiSys making a warehouse a smart warehouse, the way I look at it is, while you're not going to ask Agility, hey, Agility, what do I have in bin 05-D, you're going to be able to just go in there and scan the bin, and all that information is going to pull up for you. So while it's not a voice recognition thing, boom, there it is. You scan it, if I want to know what quantity I have of this product and what bins the product's sitting in, walk over, scan it, there it is. Agility tells you. And basically, it's that information, that visibility of information, like something like Alexa would give you, and then also the way it works with all of your processes. So if I'm doing goods receipt PO, I'm scanning, it's going right into WiSys real time. I don't have to wait for anything. I don't have to refresh at night. Bam, now I can check the bin, see how much I just scanned into the bin. If I'm doing an inventory transfer, bam, bam, 2 scans, it's right in the system. All that stuff flows immediately into the system. It works into every single thing you're doing, similar to how Alexa or Google Home, if you say, hey, Alexa, turn off the lights in the living room, show me the front door camera, she can do that. That's what WiSys does. If you're using Agility, every single thing you need to do in the warehouse, you can do it on WiSys with Agility. And that's the thing. It's a smart warehouse. Everything is in the cloud. Everything is in your system. You don't have to wait for your system to update. That's the other thing with a traditional WMS. A lot of them, you have to wait for it to update. It's not integrated. It's not real time. If you have a real-time WMS like Agility, everything is smart. It's all tied in.
It's amazing how something as simple as how much stock do I have in this one spot, if you're not integrated and automated around the process, that can become a big problem if you don't have a tool like WiSys WMS, or as you called it, Agility. I've seen companies that try to implement like bin management without a WMS solution. And if they have any layers of complexity to their business, like if they're doing like a stock letdown chase where, they're taking a case, they're opening that case up and they're pulling eaches out of it. If they're doing that manually, what happens is somebody will do a letdown to the picking location, and then the picker picks the items, they go to ship them, and all of a sudden it says, well, you can't ship from that the picking bin location because there's no stock. And it's like, well, there was stock there, I pulled it. But what happened is that the timing was out because that person that did the stock letdown turned the paperwork into the inventory control clerk, and the inventory control clerk hasn't done it yet. Or maybe they're using a legacy WMS that is in a standalone database, and it's pulling and connecting. and when they go to try and create that invoice, it's not digital now. It's not happening as events are happening in the warehouse. So you really kind of lose that as you called it, visibility to exactly everything that's going on and where things are at. And the visibility side of things in a smart warehouse, especially in today's world, I can imagine that you're pretty busy just on the whole supply chain being choked, and so many companies are just, struggling to get inventory in, that maybe they're not looking at some of these things within their warehouse. But I know the companies that do have a WMS solution right now, and they're embracing this digital now smart warehouse thought process. They're the ones that are, really kind of delivering a better customer experience. So, something like a smart warehouse, as you call it, there's so many downstream effects to being digital now and getting that visibility, because it really, I had Aaron on from WiSys on a previous podcast, and he got talking about velocity, and you really can't get to that level of velocity and realizing a smart warehouse unless you have those digital now pieces in place, because otherwise you're always going to be behind, and you're never going to be able to catch up. And if you can't catch up, it becomes really difficult to be able to realize that future state.
100%. And, I think I would implore business owners to look at this. This would be the number one thing when it comes to, okay, I have a warehouse. How do I make it better, right? The question that everybody should be asking themselves first before they do anything is, okay, whether I'm using out of the box warehouse functionality with my ERP, or, I have a WMS, or I'm just doing pen and paper, is my warehouse system able to tell me data wise exactly what we're doing? Is it able to track, okay, I have this much in a carton, this much on a pallet, this much thing there in eaches? Is it able to track, I have these bins, this bin is specifically a dock, this bin is specifically for reject items? Is it able to track that stuff? That's the number one thing. Every process that you have, if you're pushing toward that smart warehouse concept, and especially with the disruptions in the supply chain right now and all the difficulty that brings, your data needs to stick exactly to what you're actually doing, or it is no good. It tells you nothing. As somebody, who comes from a stats background, I think that's something that we lose all the time when it comes to business data, whether it's, in accounting or in your warehouse, or, production data. We can't just say, okay, this fits pretty similarly to what the process is. Great, we're getting some insight from that. It has to fit exactly what the process is. And that's lost the most in warehouse, because a lot of people think, well, I have a general idea of what I have, that's good enough, and you can't push that to the side, or you don't really know what you have. You don't really know what's going on in the warehouse. And, you're going to run out of product for orders. You're going to overship. You're going to have increased damage. All of this stuff as a result, because really what's going on isn't integrated.
Yeah, and Chase, with you coming from like the Lean Six Sigma world, you're probably aware that there's a lot of SAP Business One companies in the world that are in regulated industries, and the lot traceability, serial number traceability, expiry date management, all of those types of pieces add layers of complexity to the business model. And that's where really having a smart warehouse that gets, to that state that you were talking about, where it's like, what's in the rejected bin, what's available to pick right now, becomes extremely important. And in this world of regulation and recalls and those types of things, being able to know exactly where a serial number or a batch number has been within the warehouse as well, becomes important, especially in some of the larger organizations where maybe you had a contamination or something in a certain area of the warehouse or in a certain date window, so that you can know exactly what went through those areas at those specific time periods as well.
Yeah, and that leads me into kind of a great story. When we talk about those different markets where batch tracking, expiration dates, things like that are so important, and that visibility of data really kind of is everything as far as limiting mistakes and actually getting the monetary value out of what you've purchased to resell or whatever you're doing. You know, one of the first warehouses I worked in, we shipped food for vending machines. So we had our own truck drivers. We just did, we filled up a pallet of whatever they needed. They would tell us, okay, stock's running low on all these things. We put it in the boxes, fill up a pallet, ship it out, right? And the thing with this was we didn't have any system. We didn't have an ERP. We didn't have a warehouse management system. We were strictly pen and paper. First off, as an employee, that was miserable because, it's just way more difficult. Half the time I'm going to get something that's not there, or, I need 20 of something and there's one less, and, all these different things. There's also no mapping as to where I need to go. I have to learn it, tribal knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. But when we get down into it, the biggest problem that company had was we're doing snacks for vending machines. So of course it all has expiration dates, right? Well, at the end of every month, we would do cycle counts. So you check then. Good employees would probably check every time they pick something up. But most people weren't checking regularly, maybe once a week, maybe never. I definitely know there were people that worked there that were never checking expiration dates. They just didn't care. And essentially what's happening is at the end of every day, when these truck drivers come back from their routes, they drop off probably almost a pallet worth from every truck of expired items, or sometimes, items where we gave them too many or the wrong product, because again, we're doing it on pen and paper. So there's way more room for mistake, which if we're talking lean, that's not lean. And they're coming back and they're dropping off like a pallet per truck of this stuff. And I don't know how much this company was losing in expired product, but it was ridiculous. And I can guarantee you that there was probably, maybe 20 items. Let's say we're talking about a bag of chips that expired. Maybe 20 other bag of chips went out before that, their expiration date was good. And the issue was that the old stuff just gets pushed to the back and nobody thinks twice about it. And if you don't have that data visibility, you're not going to catch it. You'll never catch it.
Yeah. And then, fortunately, the story that you just told was just vending machines where, they had control of, right to the end consumer. But if you're selling to, one of the major retailers like a Walmart or a Target, they have expected shelf life that you have to ship. So if you're sending out that bag of chips and they expect, chips to have a shelf life of, X months, and you're sending something that doesn't have that shelf life, the chargebacks that you're going to be getting assessed by them, because they have the smart technology to be able to track that and automate the chargebacks. You're dealing with like probably 5-figure chargebacks and trying to reconcile that. The cost of doing business with these majors, a lot of times you hear it's like, I can't afford to do business with them because they're chargebacks. And it's like, well, is it their chargebacks or is it your processes? And a lot of times it's the latter. And being able to investigate those chargebacks and prove that you actually were within the rules, and because you have the systems that are smart, to be able to kind of say, no, you can't pick that item because it doesn't have the shelf life for that customer. That's taken that smart warehouse level to a whole other layer, which a lot of our customers are realizing already.
Oh yeah, and I mean, again, in today's climate with all the disruptions in the supply chain, I know we pound that home, we drive that home, but it's because it's such a big deal. And I think sometimes companies mistake that for, I need to find ways to not spend more money. So I'm not going to implement a WMS. I'm not going to implement, any efficiency strategy or anything like that. They're like, let's keep it as general as we can right now and suffer through this, get through and to the other side, right? And a lot of companies, the truth is, if you do that, you might not make it to the other side because there's so many issues that are already presenting themselves with the disruptions in the supply chain that if you have all of these inefficiency issues, it's going to be worse. And that segues into that selling to big resellers. Like, if we're selling to Walmart or Amazon or whoever, if you're getting a slap on the wrist every 2 weeks because, you're shipping the wrong stuff, or if you have the wrong labeling, or again, with the expiration dates, your expiration dates aren't correct, all that stuff adds up. And as a former business owner myself, that's your livelihood, that's taking food out of your mouth because your warehouse isn't running efficient enough. So at the end of the day, I think it's a really easy decision to make when you weigh the fact, okay, if I create this, as we're talking about, smart warehouse environment, what does it cost me? What does it save me? And of course, if you want your business to last for the long run, doing things like that, having the correct data visibility, limiting mistakes because of it, I mean, what's it save you? I mean, it saves your business's life. It keeps you going for the foreseeable future. That's everything.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said the foreseeable future. I just finished reading an article about the data-driven organization of 2025. I shared it on my LinkedIn post, and one of the things that they're talking about is AI and machine learning, and how it's going to correlate to data management in the future. And this article was talking about 2025 as the future, which is 3 years from now. So how do we I guess I got two questions for you, Chase. The first one being, are you seeing any of this AI machine learning being applied in any of the smart warehouses that you're working with right now?
I would say so. This is interesting too, because when I had my own business, I had a partner who did AI and machine learning solutions for small to medium sized market, and that's I was trying to get that out there to companies that I was working with and consulting for, and really the thing with that is it's so underutilized in small to medium business, and I get it. The margins are smaller; it's tougher to make that jump, but it's growing like crazy in the enterprise world and the big companies. I mean, every big company that's out there dominating their market, they're using AI or machine learning one way or another, or at least some other super advanced warehouse technology like drones or driverless forklifts, things like that to save time and efficiency. But I think that's the thing. I think our market that we cater to, between WiSys or Third Wave or SAP B1, that market is underutilizing it. And I think it's a solution, AI or machine learning, they're both solutions that, I mean, the things that they can do are things that I'm sure business owners in this space aren't even conceiving in their head yet until you get those consultants there that know what it does. I mean, the things that I saw my partner's AI and ML technology do is just, it's mind blowing, and it can be applied to small to medium sized businesses. You can do it. You can afford it. It really is there.
I'm glad that your feedback aligns with what I wrote on my post, which is I'm just not seeing the AI in the SME space yet. And maybe you have some insight into this, but do you think that the AI adoption is going to be a fast curve, like a rapid curve?
That's a tough question because again, in this market, I think that word does travel fast. I think a lot of companies, let's say companies in the SAP B1 world, that they might know each other through a partner and have some connections and things. They hear about those things rather quickly. But to that point, I think it's such a daunting task, right? To, first off, figure out how you can best utilize AI or ML, and that's why you get a consultant in that space that knows what they're doing. But it's such a big task to figure it out, and then the implementation is a little bit stressful because again, it's a cultural change, and cultural changes for businesses are always really difficult. But so to answer your question, I think that those are the barriers that slow it down. But again, I do think that as companies start seeing like companies, similar businesses to them implementing this, I think it's just going to become that type of issue where maybe after 5 years that a little boom starts, it's going to explode, because how am I going to, keep up if Amazon's getting used to half of the small to medium-sized businesses they're working with having like a ridiculous error reduction, and I'm still over here, just getting fined and fined and fined. Those fines are going to increase when less companies are doing it. They're going to be more angry with the companies that are still having these issues. And I think once people realize it's the smart warehouse and it's the AI technology and the machine learning, and I mean, once they realize that it's those technologies, and basically they're going to become the lifeline for businesses, and I think it will explode. Just a matter of time.
So the second question that I had on this topic is really around if I'm that pen and paper company right now, what are the steps that I should be looking at in order to, facilitate that change that you talked about, in order to, really kind of position my company to be a smart organization, or have a smart warehouse in our topic that we're talking about? Like, what are the three things or what are the things that a company should be thinking about when embarking on kind of that first step, and knowing that all this AI stuff is out there that is probably well beyond their reach?
Yeah, I think the first thing kind of goes back to that question I said earlier. The owners of these companies, or the warehouse managers, or whoever is in charge of this, a director of operations, whatever, they need to ask themselves, is my current system fitting what we actually do? And chances are, if you're pen and paper, it's not. I'm sure there's still some companies that are small enough that pen and paper, they're able to track enough data, and it's pretty good. And I know it's a thing that it scales. It depends on how big you get, but that's really the first question. And I think that leads you to the first answer is, most of these companies, I'm obviously a huge ERP and WMS advocate. So I would say that's the first thing to me, because before you can really improve process, if they called me up and said, hey, we want a warehouse consultant to come in here, look at our processes, and we want to try and, mistake proof everything, right? I can come in there and I can do it, sure. But am I going to sit there and tell them that it's really going to last forever if they have no data coming in and they don't know what they have to begin with? How are you going to make something more efficient if you don't know the data? So I think that's really the first thing. And then once you tackle getting the right data that actually fits what you're doing, not just, oh, I have a rough estimate of what I have. You actually need to know what you have. You actually need to have data that fits what's going on. Then I think you start looking at processes, and then the technologies will kind of unveil themselves to you, right? You'll look at your processes and you'll realize, like I used to work with voice guided products for the warehouse when I was at Honeywell. So like that, some companies will say, oh, a voice system would be perfect for how we pick. Other companies might say, oh, the perfect thing for how we pick would be, maybe a forklift with a tablet.
Yeah, or yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's so hard to say until you have the processes ironed out, and you can't get the processes ironed out until you have data coming in, so you know what works.
Yeah, one of our prior podcasts, we talked about how data is the new gold, and I'm glad that you talked about data, because my whole thing is are you data first? Do you trust your data, and is it real time? Because it's got to be digital now. And then from there, like you said, you can start to backfill in and look at processes and streamline processes. So one of the things, Chase, that I do with a lot of guests is I'll have them share a quote, and this is a really good segue of what we were just talking about. The quote that you shared with me, I'm just going to bring it up here, and I'm going to read it. The aim of leadership should be to improve the performance of man and machine, to improve quality, to increase output, and simultaneously to bring pride of workmanship to people. Put in a negative way, the aim of leadership is not merely to find and record failures of men, but to remove the causes of failure, to help people do a better job with less effort. W. Edwards Deming. So thank you for sharing this quote, and tell me, what does this quote mean to you?
Yeah, I think that this quote might be the best way to symbolize, what we're doing. People like me and you who are out here working to make businesses more efficient. That's really always the bottom line, is what's our customer or the business we're working with, what's their profitability? How do we make them more efficient? How do we make them survive and thrive as long as possible, right? And a quote like this, and I had a professor who was a big Deming guy and got me hooked, and there's a wealth of great quotes from Deming about the exact stuff that I love about business consulting and working with businesses. And I think that this highlights perfectly how people are people. You can have the best employees in the world, you can have the worst employees in the world, and it doesn't matter if there's a million opportunities for mistakes. And basically it's our job as consultants, it's upper level management's job to go in there and find ways to, help the processes shepherd the people to become great employees, because you're not going to become a great employee if you hate your job every day too. If you're like, this is stupid, why am I doing this? This process sucks. If all the processes are bad, you're not going to create great employees because they're going to hate everything that they do. So when you go in there, you make good processes, you're actually shepherding these people to become great employees. And that's where that pride of workmanship comes in. You're helping these people become great employees, love what they're doing because they're not having headaches constantly. That's going to improve efficiency, the quality. That's going to improve everything because they're happy doing their job. And at the end of the day, they're also doing their job with less effort because the processes make sense. So again, everything revolves around that process. That process is the nucleus, the heart of the business, especially in the warehouse. And when you have a good process, everybody's going to like their job. Everybody's going to probably do their job pretty well because your process is so good.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing this quote, because it really does summarize exactly everything that we were just talking about prior to bringing this quote up. And my favorite quote is actually a Deming quote as well, Chase, and that is theory plus experience equals learning. I found it interesting that we talked about Saint Vincent College and your experience there, and how your internships were applying the things that you were learning about, because it really lines up with my favorite quotes. The quotes and the studies that Deming performed, and the timelessness of his research is astronomical.
Oh yeah, and I can't say enough too how learning about that when you're going through a program to become a business efficiency expert, so to speak, and you're working on lean, you're working on Six Sigma, you're working on all these things with a common goal of increasing efficiency for a business. I think that the quotes of Deming are just the absolute perfect way to put reason to what you're doing. And I think that it's thinkers like that in the business world that help us realize the impact of the jobs that we do and the impact of the things that we do, because it's stuff like this you probably aren't really going to realize it until you've either been doing this for a long time, thought really hard about this for a long time, or have heard the teachings of somebody like Deming. But I didn't get into marketing and Lean Six Sigma and SAP in college at first thinking, oh, I'm going to make employees happier. I'm going to make the life of the employee better. I'm going to help prevent people from working jobs that, are let's say part-time in the warehouse that they hate, like I may have in high school. Even there was plenty of jobs that I didn't like because the processes stunk. And that's the thing, you don't think about it, and it puts everything into perspective about why we do what we do, why it's important, because of course it's great for a business to, have, better profitability. It's great to help businesses last a long time, right? But the implications of that are people are happier, people make more money, people have a steady job, and they take that back to their families, they take that back to their community. And there really is a really big cause and effect here of what we're doing. And Deming always did a great job of pointing things like that out, and also doing a great job of pointing out what it takes to get there. And I think that's where your quote ties in a little bit more too, is, it really puts it into perspective about knowing what you're trying to figure out, having a theory, right? Knowing what you're trying to figure out. And then every day when you're working, you're thinking about that. And then you learn how to make these processes actually better, or you learn why you're doing what you're doing. And I think that's what he brings into perspective the most for me, is it's showed me why I do what I do.
Well, Chase, I can't thank you enough for joining us on the 4Cs for SAP Business One podcast, and I thank you for your time. I will be sharing this out on LinkedIn, so if anybody needs to find you, just find my LinkedIn profile, and you'll see a link to Chase there. If you have any questions about what we've talked about today, send me an email, and always, take care and stay connected.